Welcome to the USD Machine Shop. These are the Intellect ProLite 3000 2-axis CNC benchtop lathes. From left to right, the 3-jaw chuck, automatic tool changer turret, and the live center tailstock. I would like to introduce Dr. No, who will take us through the pen machining lab, and then stay tuned as Mr. Sam Burt shows us how to polish and assemble the pens.
Hello students. Well, today I'm going to walk you through the pen machining and assembly lab. We're going to start with the acrylic stock, and we will cut the stock into two pieces that are approximately the length of your upper tooth and lower tooth. So as you see earlier, I marked the two marks, and now we're going to use the bandsaw to cut it into two pieces. So we're gonna go to the next step and face off our upper and lower pen bodies. So now we are on the Intellitech CNC lathe, and we also open up the CNC base software, the emergency stop button, which is the red button located on the left hand side. We're gonna pull that out from the setup menu. Okay. We select set check home, the home function, the button to home the machine. So the machine needs to find its home before you start. All right, we can turn the spindle on, spindle off. At this stage, you turn the spindle on so that you see how it works. Then the spindle will get turned on, and at 1200 RPM speed. On that same window that you saw earlier, if you click spindle off, then the spindle will be off. So this is the chuck. That is the location when you use the T-wrench here. You insert it in and you turn it one way or another to tighten or untighten, or I should say opening and closing the three jaws on the chuck, depending on the diameter of your stock. Right? You have the tailstock, the right side of the stock to be supported by this live center. Okay, otherwise your part will wobble and you will create problem when the cutter comes down. Some knobs that you can loosen and adjust the position of the slide center along the lathe bed, and also another knob on the other side for you to extend and retract the live center. This is the turret. We have a total of 9 cutter position, but right now we only have 3 cutters being installed, and we'll be using only cutter number 1. I'm going to show you different features of the CNC base software. On the right hand side of the software, you're going to see there's the operator panel and there's a jaw control. These are used to manually drive the movement of the cutting tool. So on the bottom, there's a step move. So there you can move your cutter in a stepwise mode or continuous. So right now, the continuous C-O-N-T option is red, so that means continuous, which means when you click on either the X or the Z, the cutter will move continuously in that direction. So if we press, this is moving in the X direction now, so if we press it down, so it moves continuously. Alright, and that is in a fast mode at the moment. Okay, and this is in the negative Z direction on continuous mode. Alright, we start with our upper pen body. The smooth end of our stock will go inside because we want to use that end, the jagged end of the pen stock. That will be facing out because that's the end that we need to smooth out and cut it down to the exact dimension. Turn the spindle on, and on the software we are manually moving the cutter in the Z direction, so the negative Z direction now. negative Z direction between 10 and 30 thousandths of an inch. We move the cutter down in the negative X direction. Our correct dimension earlier from the design is 2.096 inches. So we want to know how much material we need to remove. We have 2.232. We still have quite a bit to go because we need to go down to 2.096. Move the cutter closer to the workpiece and start removing material, again, between 10 thousandths to 30 thousandths of an inch each time. You have to do this in multiple passes to get it down to our final dimension. Okay, so now we have our upper and lower pen body. So you notice that one is longer than the other. And the tubes. It hardens very fast. So we have to, once we put the glue on to the metal tube, we have to insert it inside the acrylic stock and insert it all the way through as fast as possible. Push it in and invert it. And it will be set pretty fast. And we move on to our lower tube. Do the same thing, apply the glue. Push it through fast. Make sure they're flush through so you don't have part of the metal sticking out. So there's your upper and lower pen body. Back on the top tool menu, select the configure turret option. You have the configure turret window open. So on station number 1, we select tool 1 and click OK. We only need to work with station number 1. Back to the tool menu again. There's a select option, operate turret, which is the last option. Okay. We got the window pop up and click on the home icon. When we home it, the turret rotates and it found its home position and then it stopped. Okay, so now we're gonna put our pen assembly together. Recall the mandrel set that you were given before, right? There's a lock nut at the end and they're supposed to be 6 bushings together. So you start with your lock nut. There are supposed to be 2 bushings right next to the lock nut, and then there's your lower pen body, and then there's a center bushing, and there's your upper pen body, and then 3 bushings on the left hand side, and that will go against the surface of the jaws on the chuck. Left end will go inside the chuck and give it about like an inch or so for it to go in. And you see that you don't want the bushing to be part of it. The bushing just pressed against the chuck surface, but not inside the chuck. Okay? And then move your life center in, like we showed you earlier. tighten the knob to lock it in. Now the pen assembly need to be pretty fixed in place. So by doing to do that, you tighten the lock nuts on the right hand side, and then use the chuck on the other side to go in the opposite direction. If they're not tightened, the pen assembly will move during the cutting, and your pen machining will be ruined, right? So when you rotate, after you tighten, if you rotate the pen assembly, if the chuck rotates at the same time, that's good. To set the Z origin, that's what we do first. RZ0 would be right at the end surface of the right end of your pen assembly. So you move it close, use a piece of paper. It's still in continuous mode, but when you get real close, you want to change to the step mode. Okay, and the closer you get, the smaller the step will need to be in order for you to get an accurate Z0 setup here. Same process that you did on the Tormek CNC mill. You go to setup option and select set position. The current Z position is 1 paper thickness away in the positive direction of the Z. So we just finished setting up the Z0 for our work coordinate. Next, we're gonna set up the X0 origin. Now, if you recall, when you were designing your pen in Mastercam, the X0 in your work coordinate will be right at the center of the workpiece. Now, the workpiece is mounted to the chuck, so the center of the workpiece, which also means the center of the chuck. Now we are moving on to the actual machining of our pen. Turn our pen assembly. If the chuck turns along with it, that's good. So looking good. All right. So when we start, make sure that we have the right code up. Make sure our other hand is close to the emergency stop button, and our eyes should always be on the machining process itself. All right, so let's get this going. We go to program, and there's a run continue or F5 option. You click on that and run program window to make sure we have the right program up going. And once we're ready, we'll press run program. And when we press run program, our program will start. So the turret will turn to the right tool position. Loosen the tailstock and push it back to give us room to disassemble the pen assembly. So find that hole with the 0 mark, loosen the jaws of the chuck, and remove the whole mandrel set. Remove the bushings. That's your upper pen body, and that's your lower pen body.